Jean from the Inky Studio. Welcome, welcome. This is, I believe, part 5 of the lace and cloth journal that I've been assembling here. And if you missed that parts 1 through 4, I'm going to put the playlist down below so you can catch up. So I am basically just using fabric and lace to make most of the pages, but there will be paper ephemera for writing and that type of thing stuck in all the different pockets. And I finished, I believe I'm having these 6 pages, and that I think is enough. I'm kind of looking at it and it's getting, thick. And at first I was going to put in 2 signatures of 3 pages each, but I have since decided to put in 2 pages and 3 signatures. And what I plan to do is I plan to sew every 2 pages together, and that way, when I go to put them in the cover, it'll be easier to handle, and it's thick enough. It's not too thick that I can't get through that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting probably somewhat of a basting stitch, a long stitch, probably 3.5 inch stitch on there. Not that that's that important. You can put any stitch you want. You could stitch this by hand together. That would be perfectly fine. I'm just using the machine because it's quicker, but you can definitely put a running stitch down the center. So that's what I'm going to do with the signatures and get those set up. Now for the cover, I wanted a quilted cover is what I decided on. And what I like to do for quilted covers, I like to go to the thrift store and get pillow shams. And, it's hard to show you the whole sham here. I've already cut it in half. But I like to get pillow shams because they're small, as far as oftentimes design is smaller on them, so it's better suited for a cover. It's also, I don't know, cutting into a big quilt. For one thing, that's kind of hard for me to do psychologically, and secondly, I would get really tired of that whole quilt after a while, working with it all the time. And this way I can have a little variety of things. So this was just an oddball sham. It didn't have a mate. It was just there in the thrift store. So there wasn't even I suppose at one time there was a comforter that matched it, but there was nothing. It was just all by itself. It was a little orphan. So I picked that up, and I don't think it's that old. It's been well washed, as you can see, by a very legal abiding person. This really always cracks me up. Under penalty of law, do not remove this tag. Except by consumer. Okay, that is a new phrase. Used to be they didn't even have that. So anyways, enough of that. I don't think it's that old. So what I've done is I've cut out what I wanted. Now, just some tips that I do when I cut these out. Sometimes the fabric, like the quilted part, is this right here. And then, of course, there's the cloth to shove your pillow in between of. Sometimes this cloth is just a plain white muslin, which can also be used for things. And sometimes it's kind of pretty and fun. So this one was pretty and fun. So I cut away on the other half of this, I cut away the fabric, and then I'll have, a little piece of fun fabric to work with down the road. And these tend to be very laundered, washed so many times that they begin to kind of lose the newness to them, which is really cool, which is why I also like sheets and pillowcases. But anyways, that's what I did with that. Now there is this, usually there's some kind of a border or binding around the sham, and it would be wonderful if the journal worked out to where you could keep, most of the binding, but it usually doesn't always work out that way. Usually it's a little too wide. So I went ahead and I cut it down. The other half, I just cut it down to the size that I wanted for my journal, and zigzag stitched all the way around the edges. You can straight stitch it. Now, as far as how much fabric I'm going to be using, I lay it in here, and I am allowing an overlap here. And you can see how the cover comes out, almost an inch. Yeah, I'm going to leave that there because as this becomes fuller and fuller, some of that will be eaten away by this expanding a bit. So I am leaving that much, and I think it's fine to have overlap anyways. For the closure, I am going to put in this really pretty vintage doily, and I'm going to string a ribbon. You can see these little holes in here. It's kind of fun. I'm going to string a ribbon through there, and then to close it, you will be tying this with a bow to close it shut. Now, if you don't want to put something over it and you want a closure, then I think the easiest way is before you stitch all the way around it, kind of see if you can't get an opening. Like here would have been an opening, stitching here and here, and that would have been opened enough to put in a tie. You might want to look for that. Another thing you could do, which is what I'm going to be putting pockets there, but if you put a pocket there, you could stitch it inside here and then put the pocket over it. So those are just kind of options that you could do. I feel that even though this is quilted, it's a rather thin quilt. It's not very heavy. It's very thin. And I want a little bit of weight there on the very edges. So I have here some canvas, or sometimes it's called duck. I just go to the fabric store and get the heaviest, stiffest fabric you can find. That's the rule of thumb. And I'm putting this in here so that it just has a little bit more weight and also a pocket. Now I want to put this in, but I also wanted to put a some vintage lace down here to have like a couple of tuck spots there on the end. But I wasn't sure. You know, it's pretty thick for my machine to go through. It probably could, but I'm not sure I'd be happy with how it looked. So what I intend to do here is I intend to sew the lace on here separately, stitch, probably put a straight stitch down here to stop the fraying because it will continue to fray. And then I'm going to glue it in. I'm going to glue it right here on the edges with some fabric tack. And I do believe that this is thick enough to where you will not see the glue come through on the other end. So let me step away and get those sewn up. And so we'll just finish gluing this one in, and I'm just running it not at the very edge, but just before you get to the edge, because when you press it down it will spread, so we don't want it to leak out. At least we want to prevent it as much as we can. And put a little extra right there at these points. Okay. And then, now again with fabric and glue, you want to make sure you do some pressing over and over a few times, because this then helps the glue to sink down into all the fibers of your cloth. And not just sit on top. And with the quilting fabric, you don't have to really worry about the glue seeping to the other edge and making a mark on it. So there we go. We've got both ones sewed in, and I took the lace and I actually made some little tiny pockets along here. Because one big long one, probably the lace won't hold the ephemera in tight enough. It'll fall out all the time. So I made 2 here and 3 over on the other spot. And so now we have a little bit of weight here on the cover. Now, if my pages were quite wide, but if you make them narrow enough, you could take your quilted fabric and then bend it over and make pockets on both sides, and then use that for some extra weight. So that's another idea you can do. All right, so those seem to be in quite nice. And now I'm going to find the middle. So we'll fold it in half to find the middle. Right there. Got these threads here. There's the middle. Oh, and I should probably find the middle down here on this end as well. There we go. Now we found the middle, And I'm just going to put down here a light marking of a pencil. And again, they do sell disappearing inks or things like that to mark fabric that you can use instead. But it's very light, and you know, by the time I sew it in, you're not really going to see them all that much. And then I will put in the middle one on that middle line down there, and then kind of guesstimate where the other two lines should go. So we got a signature here. I'm going to allow just a little bit between those signatures, just a bit. Let me just see what that is. So I'll mark this up really fast. So that is about 1.5 inches there, I believe, between the signatures. Yep, that's 1.5 inches. So I'll go 1.5 inches over here on this side. Now I might end up bringing these in. That's quite a possibility there. This might be a little more than I want to allow. Let's see. Let's see here. If I fold this right here with this signature, will I have enough room? That's pretty close. I'm not sure that that cover is going to cover it completely. So I'm going to make them, let's make them 1 inch apart. Let's just see what that does. So we'll put one here and one down here. So I'm just experimenting to see, because I want to allow as much room as I can for expansion of putting ephemera in the pages, but then I do want my cover to cover the pages. So if I put this right here, now that is a little bit better. Yeah, I kind of like that better. Let's just try that, and I will put these in here. I'm just experimenting. And I think that's kind of what you have to do, because everybody's fabric will be different thicknesses. So now I have one here and I have this one here. So yeah, I think that's good. I think that'll be good. That'll work well. And so I'll just come down and put a light pencil mark down this area here. So I will be sewing the signatures in by hand. I suppose if you have a sewing machine that will take it, and you know, some will, you can sew, you probably could sew 2 pages together in the machine. But it is a lot of work, because there's creeping that can take place, and I don't know, just not, I know it's not going to work for me. So I'm going to sew these, just the 2 pages by machine, and then I will sew the whole thing into the signature. So let me do the stitching, the machine stitching on the pages. Okay, now we're going to sew the signatures into the cover. And another tip I wanted to give you is, when you sew the pages together, use a long stitch. I think my machine was like 3.5, so that if you change your mind like I did and wanted to rearrange your pages, they're really easy to take out, because all you really want to do is just baste this on here. It doesn't need to be attached permanent, you know, with a small stitch. So that was just a little something there. Now I'm going to go ahead and line up that stitched area, and I'm so happy that I have been putting in that middle stitch line, because it's been very handy. And I'm going to line it up to the markings that I had in here, and I will let's see, do I want this to come down? No, it's about right. I'm going to pin them in with safety pins, because this is a lot of fabric to use straight pin with, and it's much easier, I find, just to put in a safety pin. And we're just trying to make sure that as we handle it, it stays on track. Now I've thought a lot about, you know, what kind of stitches to use to put this in. I do believe that you could use a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I would definitely, I would really lean towards using a 5-hole rather than a 3-hole. You could do that. You could come in and just make long stitches, like over and over. A long stitch, it might be like this here, and just stitch, stitch, stitch a few times and do like 3 of them all the way down. That would be a way to do it. I am going to do it this way, and I've already done it once. I like the way it turned out, and so I'm going to get some pearl cotton. So I really feel like you probably need something heavier than just thread. Could be wrong, but I'm using pearl cotton, and I'm going to go 4 times the length of my height of page. And I've got a, it's a sharp needle, but it has a kind of a large eye on it. It might be like an embroidery type of a needle. And what I'm going to do then, I'm knotting it, I don't need to knot it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do stitches that are uniform all the way up, and then I'm going to come back in between those stitches on the way down. I'm starting in the middle because what I want to end up with, and I'll show you here, I want to end up with some ties here so that I can put something on it. Now if you don't care to do that, you can start here and go up and back like that if you'd like to. But that's what I'm doing, and I'm just picking, you know, kind of a middle spot. It's not really that critical. And now luckily I have quilting, so I can follow this line all the way up and down. But if you don't have that kind of a marking, you might want to put pins, and this is how I would do it. I would take pins and I would just put them through like this, you know, all the way up and down my spine, turn it over, and then I would take another pin and just kind of like put the little pin whichever, probably this way, however you want, and just kind of mark those little spots, all where those little pins come up. You'll want to mark that with another pin, and then take that pin out so you don't prick yourself. But that's what I would do, is I would mark it down that way, and that way when you turn it over you can kind of keep on track, right? Just to help you align that up. That's how I would do that. So the trickiest thing to do is going straight down, because your needle will want to go sideways on the other side. It'll want to sometimes come up at a different point over here on that. And so I'll show you in a minute how that can happen. And I'm just going to come through, but I'm not, of course, going to pull all the way through because I want a tail here. And I think it would be a good idea, now that I'm thinking of it, to take like a bull clip here, and we're just going to clip this page and the other pages all together to the cover, just to kind of keep them stable. Now I did put in the middle signature first. I like to do that. To me it's easier to sew the other signatures in. Even with paper, that's how I like to do it. And so we have that. Now we're going to start putting in stitches that are basically the same width and or length, and I'm choosing like a 1/2 inch. I think the larger, you know, the more narrow, the shorter they are, I think the harder it is to keep them straight. So it's like a good 1/2 inch is what it is. And I'm going to come down. I'm just going to start my needle, but I'm going to turn it over and check to make sure that I'm on that stitched line, and I am. And I'm just going to do that all the way down. checking to make sure that I'm popping up roughly in the area that I want to be. And you see that the needle is just a little bit over. It's not horrible, but it's over a little bit. So now I'm going to go back down in and just sort of wiggle it around till I get more in line with that stitch. And if you end up pulling it through and it's all crooked, you don't like it, the beauty of this, having long stitches like this, is they're so easy to take out. You just really can. You don't even have to cut it. You can just unthread your needle and pop them out and thread them back in and try over again. So it's really a no stress process, I think. And I will just continue to do that all the way down. Okay, now I'm down at the very bottom of the page. And now I'm going to turn around and stitch in between the stitches. So I'm going to come to where the last stitch ended there. And by doing this, it's like a double stitch. And I think it's a very firm stitch that will be very stable as the person uses this to turn the pages and such. Now again, probably the 5-hole pamphlet stitch would be fine. I'm just want to make sure this is very secured. So this is how I'm doing it. Now I'm going to stitch all the way back up. And if you can see, I'm filling in that stitch line there. It might be easier to see over here. And I can take these off now. This one off anyways. So I'm just coming here to where the last one ended. And then where that one ended. And so forth until we get to the middle. And when I get to the middle, I'm going to continue stitching up, come back and end here. So now I have come to the middle, the last stitch here. It's the middle of my page. Now I can make the knot and I can tie it just like I do in a signature in a paper journal. And there you be. We've got this here all done. Now that's finished. I wish I had a darker a darker thread than this, but anyways, it's what it is. So these are done, and now what I did with this one is I wanted to put some lace down here in the middle. I glued this in, but yet I still wanted my ties. So I will show you how I did that. leave it alone. Don't adjust it or anything. Don't close the page or move it around for, a good 10-15 minutes so that it has time to dry there in place. So now you have, and actually I might put another knot in here just to keep this down in the middle. That probably would be a good idea. And so now we have a little place to put on a charm. All right. Well, that concludes this part. And also, I think this is the last video I'll probably do on the construction of this. And I'll sew that in later, of course, but this is how it's going to be set up. We have our pockets, and then we have our various pages here on the inside. And yeah, so thank you so much for viewing. I'm hoping that this is helping you out with your cloth and fabric journal journey, and we will see you again soon.